ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضاه. Today inshallah we're going to begin الدرس السادس. الدرس السادس. But before we do that, let's quickly go over the homework inshallah, so everyone is able to mark what they've done to see if it's correct. So we stopped here last time. This was the homework and this, and there's a reading exercise on the next page. طيب, we'll start here. اقرأ واكتب مع ضبط أواخر الكلمات. Read and write with correct vowelization of the endings of the word. So this is to test us to see if we understood the concept of ya an-nida, harf an-nida, the ya of calling. When this harf comes into a noun or comes before a noun, we take off the tanween. So ustadun becomes ustadu, ya ustadu. طيب, so this is the first homework. And I've written the homework out just to save time. So here we have the words. I've written it out. Ya Ali, you. Ya Abbasu. Ya Abbasu. Shaykh does not have ya before it, so I keep the tanween. There's no reason for me to take off the tanween. So shaykhun. But with ya before it, it becomes ya shaykhu. Ya shaykhu. Ya rajulu. Ya rajulu. Yasir does not have anything before it. And this ya is part of the word. It's not the ya which is added. This ya is part of the name. So Yasirun. Ya Ammaru. One dhamma. Doktor. Doktorun. Because there's nothing before it. Whereas this one, Ya Doktoru. Ya Doktoru. The next piece of homework was to construct questions similar to this, but referring to these objects. Kitabu man hada. So the mudaf ilayhi is what's unknown, so we've replaced it with man, the ismul istifham man. Whose book is this? So we need to construct similar questions referencing them to these objects here. I've written it out already, so all I'm going to do is place a dhamma here because it's mudaf, right? Mudaf does not have tanween. So qalamu man hadha. Whose pen is this? Qamisu man hadha. Whose shirt is this? Baytu man hadha. Whose house is this? Sariru man hadha. Whose bed is this? So this was the writing homework. Then we had a reading homework on the next page. And the reading homework was to test us to see if we are able to implement this rule of Hamzatul Wasl. Hamzatul Wasl, if it's at the beginning or you're beginning the word, you read it. If it's in the middle, you skip it. So if we understand that, let's read this. The exercise title is اقرأ ما يلي. Read the following. مراعيا قواعد نطق همزة الوصل, while taking care of the principles of pronouncing the Hamzatul Wasl. Ibnu Muhammadin. I didn't say Ibnun, I said Ibnu because it's mudaf ilayh. Ibnu Muhammadin fil Iraqi. Ibnu Muhammadin fil Iraqi. Wabnu Hamidin fil Hindi. Wabnu Hamidin fil Hindi. Ibnu Muhammadin fil Iraqi. Wabnu Hamidin fil Hindi. Muhammad's son is in Iraq and Hamid's son is in India. Kharajabnu الطبيب. So there's a Hamzatul Wasl here, Hamzatul Wasl here. I'm skipping both. Kharajabnu الطبيب الطبيب. Kharajabnu الطبيب من البيت. من البيت. Kharajabnu الطبيب من البيت. This is a jumla fi'liya. It starts with a fi'l, a verb. Who is the person doing the action of leaving? Ibnu. So his maf'u is fa'il, the doer. The doer is marfu'. Why? It's taking one dhamma. Why is it taking one dhamma, not two dhammas? Because this is mudaf. It's fa'il and at the same time, it's mudaf. Kharaja ibnu tabibi. The doctor's son left. Left from where? Min al-bayti. from the house. خرج ابن الطبيب من البيت. The doctor's son left from the house. Next one is also a جملة فعلية, starts with a فعل also. ذهب. ذهب is the فعل. ابن is the فاعل. ابن is the فاعل. ذهب ابن وانضم also because it's مضاف. This is مضاف إليه. ذهب ابن التاجر. ذهب ابن التاجر إلى السوق. The merchant's son went to the سوق market. He went to the market. ذهب ابن التاجر إلى السوق. Next one. اسم المهندس فيصل. اسم المهندس فيصل. The engineer's name, اسم المهندس, the engineer's name is فيصل. واسم الطبيب مسعود. واسم الطبيب مسعود. And the doctor's name is مسعود. اسم المهندس فيصل واسم الطبيب مسعود. Two separate sentences. طيب, next one. ما اسم, not ما اسم, ما اسمك, ما اسم, ما اسم. I'm not reading the alif here and I'm not reading the hamzatul wasl, so I'm going from mim to sin. mas اسم الرجل. ما اسم with one dhamma because it's mudaf. ما اسم الرجل. What's the name of the man? What's the man's name? ابن من أنت. Whose son are you? ابن من أنت. Whose son are you? أنا ابن الوزير. أنا ابن الوزير. I am the son of the minister. I am the minister's son. أنا ابن. Here the alif is not stretched. أنا noon to the ba. Noon to ba. أنا ابن الوزير. This is مضاف إليه. أنا ابن الوزير. I am the minister's son. طيب, so this was the homework from last lesson. Now, inshallah, we are able to start today's lesson. الدرس السادس. الدرس السادس, the sixth lesson. So we finished الدرس الأول, الدرس الثاني, الدرس الثالث, الدرس الرابع, الدرس الخامس, الدرس السادس is what we're going to start today, inshallah. الدرس السادس. Memorize these words. Yeah. السادس, the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. الدرس السادس, the sixth lesson. In this lesson, inshallah, we're going to be learning a few things. From them is this word here. This word says هذه. هذه. هذه, which means this. It means this. This is the feminine version of هذا. هذا, what we learnt in lesson 1, the ismul ishara in lesson 1. This is the feminine version for هذا. So this is translated into English the same way we translate هذا, except that the only difference is that هذه is used to point out objects that are feminine objects, whereas هذا is for masculine objects. The rest of the conditions are the same. We mentioned 3 conditions for using هذا, which was it has to be singular, mufrad, and it has to be close. The third condition is what differentiates هذه from هذا, and that is for هذا it has to be masculine, but for هذه it has to be feminine. Objects that are feminine. And we mentioned this previously in the first lesson, that nouns can be categorized in terms of gender into 2, مذكر or مؤنث. مذكر masculine, مؤنث feminine. طيب, so if we're pointing out objects that are مذكر, we say هذا. If we're pointing out objects which are feminine, we say هذه. طيب, so this is what we need to know here. And in terms of spelling, it's exactly the same. There's an alif which is pronounced after the ha, but it's not written. Just like هذا. هذا, we pronounce the alif after a ha, which is not written, and it's not written. The same here. We pronounce the alif by stretching the ha, but we don't write it. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to read the passage, inshallah, and translate. And then after, we're going to come back and inshallah explain the rules and the concepts that we need to come out with from this lesson, inshallah. طيب, this says هذا ابن حامد وهذه بنت ياسر. 2 sentences. هذا ابن حامد. This is Hamid's son. هذا ابن حامد. This is Hamid's son. وهذه, this is what we're learning. وهذه is the feminine of هذا. وهذه بنت ياسر. And this is Yasir's daughter. ابن حامد جالس. Hamid's son is sitting. وبنت ياسر واقفة. And Yasir's daughter is standing. ابن حامد جالس. Hamid's son is sitting. وبنت ياسر واقفة. And Yasir's daughter is standing. من هذه? من هذه? Who is this? And obviously you're going to be pointing at someone who is feminine. Who is this? And we're talking about someone who's feminine. هذه أخت المهندس. هذه أخت المهندس. This is the muhandis's sister, the engineer's sister. أهي أيضا مهندسة. أهي أيضا مهندسة. Is she also? أيضا means also. Is she also an engineer? Is she also an engineer? An engineer, feminine engineer, because of this addition of ta marbuta, which we're going to explain inshallah, turns this engineer to a feminine one. So muhandis, male engineer, muhandisatun, a feminine or female engineer. A female engineer. Is she also an engineer? لا هي طبيبة. No, she is a doctor. Previously we learned طبيب. طبيب. Now we're learning طبيبة. So what do you think the difference between طبيب and طبيبة is? This addition of ta made it feminine. طبيبة is a feminine doctor. No, she is a doctor. She's not a muhandisatun. She's not a female engineer. She's not an engineer. She is a doctor. A doctor. Obviously, we're talking about a female doctor. So we have this additional ta, which is called ta marbuta. We're going to explain this, inshallah. Is she also an engineer? No, she is a doctor. طيب, next. سيارة من هذه? سيارة من هذه? Whose car is this? This is the same construction that we did in the previous homework, except that we changed the اسم الإشارة to هذه instead of هذا. Before it was قلم من هذا. Because the thing we're pointing out is feminine, so we need to use a suitable اسم الإشارة, feminine also. سيارة من هذه? Whose car is this? هذه سيارة المدير. هذه سيارة المدير. This is the headmaster's car, the head teacher's car, or the director's car. ما هذه? What is this? ما هذه? هذه مكواة. هذه مكواة. An iron. This is an iron. مكواة is feminine. So we say هذه. لمن هذه? Who does this belong to? لي shows possession. لمن هذه? Who does this belong to? For who is this? Who does this belong to? هذه لخالد. This belongs to Khalid. Belongs to this, yani belonging, we get the meaning from the lam, this lam. This lam here comes to show possession or belonging. هذه لخالد. This belongs to Khalid. And they're talking about something which is feminine, which is the حقيبة. لمن هذه? Who does this belong to? We didn't say لمن هذا because we're referring to the thing which is feminine. هذه لخالد. This belongs to Khalid. أدراجة أنس هذه. أدراجة أنس هذه. دراجة means bicycle. Is this Anas's bicycle? أدراجة أنس هذه. Is this the bike of Anas? لا. هذه دراجة عمار. No, this is Ammar's bike. لا. هذه دراجة عمار. This is Ammar's bike. هذه جديدة. جديدة means new. But if you're talking about something which is feminine, جديد with the addition of ta marbuta, that's all it is, and it turns it feminine. هذه جديدة. This is new, referring to the bike. ودراجة أنس قديمة. ودراجة أنس قديمة. This bike is new. the one that belongs to Ammar. Whereas Darajatu Anasin, Anas's bike is Qadimatun, old. هذه ساعة علي, this is Ali's watch. هي جميلة جدا, it is beautiful, very beautiful actually. هي جميلة جدا, it is very beautiful, the watch. هذه ملعقة وهذه قدر, this is a ملعقة, ملعقة means spoon, this is a spoon, and this is a pot, the spoon is in the pot. الملعقة في القدر, the spoon is in the pot. قدر is a pot. ملعقة is a spoon. هذه بقرة الفلاح, هذه بقرة الفلاح, بقرة is a cow. This is the cow of al-fallahi, farmer. Fallah means farmer. This is the farmer's cow. هذا أنف, this is a nose. وهذا فم, and this is a mouth. أنف فم, أنف فم. This is a nose and this is a mouth. We have to try and memorize these words inshallah for next lesson. هذه أذن, here he said هذا أنف. For these two body parts he said هذا, هذا. Here he's saying هذه, هذه أذن, this is an ear. وهذه عين, and this is an eye. أذن عين, أذن عين, this is an ear and this is an eye. وهذه يد, and this is a hand, yad is a hand. وهذه رجل, and this is a foot. هذه رجل وهذه رجل, this is a foot and this is a foot. So رجل, foot, يد, hand. طيب, so now we've read the passage. Let us now derive the rulings from this passage. The first thing that the author wants to teach us in this lesson is firstly that nouns are divided into two types in terms of gender. We have nouns which are masculine, مذكرون, and nouns which are feminine, مؤنث. طيب, and this applies to all nouns, whether they are indicating a living being or non-living beings. If it's a living being that we're talking about, then the differentiating the gender is very easy. The issue is, how do we differentiate the gender of non-living things? Because we're saying non-living nouns also they have gender. How do we differentiate between non-living, the gender of non-living things? How do we know their gender? Well, the author here in this text, he teaches us that one sign of a feminine noun, a sign of a feminine noun is ta marbuta. At-ta, let me write that down. Ta, or let me write at-ta'u, at-ta al-marbutatu. At-ta al-marbuta. What is ta marbuta? Ta marbuta is the closed ta. So we have two types of ta. We have the ta maftuha, which is open. Ta marbuta is closed. So it looks something like this. Let me write in black. It looks like this. Either like this or like this. So we have two types. Two types of ta. This is ta marbuta. When do we use this? When do we use this? Firstly, this ta marbuta only comes at the end of nouns. You never see it in the beginning or in the middle of the noun. It's always going to be in the end. طيب, when do we use this one? When do we use this one? We use this one if the letter is either one of these six. Alif, dal, dhal, ra, za, or waw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 letters. If these 6 letters come at the end of the noun and we have to choose one of these, then we're going to put this one. The reason why I put this one is because this one does not join. So these 6 letters never join with the letter that comes after it, which is why we use this one, the closed one. Whereas this one with the tail extending allows for joining. So anything other than these 6, we use this one. If these 6 come, we use this one. That's the only difference between the two. It's just writing. It's exactly the same ta. So ta marbuta is an indication that a noun is feminine. So we have this word. Sayyaratun. Sayyaratun. This word is feminine. What's the indication that it's feminine? The ta marbuta. Which ta marbuta did we use? This one. Why? Because ra does not join with the letter after it. Okay. Another one that we learned in this lesson. Mil'aqatun. Mil'aqatun means spoon. It's feminine. What's the indication of it being feminine? Ta marbuta at the end. We use this one. Why? Because it joins. Qaf is not from these 6. Mil'aqatu means spoon. And so on. And this ta marbuta can sometimes be added onto a noun to make it feminine. Like how we used muhandis in the text. We had muhandisun, referring to an engineer. If we wanted to make it feminine, what we do is we add the ta marbuta. But before adding the ta marbuta, so here we have muhandisun with tanween. Before adding ta marbuta, you need to give the last letter, which you're adding the ta marbuta to, you need to give it a fatha. Always. You always give the letter before the ta marbuta a fatha, unless the letter before the ta marbuta is an alif. If it's an alif, it's not going to accept fatha because alif is always sakin, so it's going to remain the same. Anything other than alif, you always give it a fatha. So muhandisatun. طيب, what's muhandisatun? Muhandisatun is the feminine version of this. Where's this? Muhandisun, engineer. So muhandisatun. And the same, mudarrisun, mudarrisatun, teacher, masculine, feminine. Then we have tabibun. Tabibatun is the masculine, is the feminine version. Muallimun, muallimatun, and the list goes on. Mudirun, mudiratun. And we had in the sentence waqifatun also. Waqifatun means standing, but this is referring to someone that's feminine. Something feminine is standing. Waqifatun. If it was masculine, waqifun. And then we had jalisun. Jalis was talking about someone who is masculine, sitting. Jalisun. If you want to make it feminine, what do? Take off the tanween, change the sin into a fatha, and then add the ta marbuta. And that's where you see the jalisatun, and that's where you see the tanween comes onto the ta marbuta. Jalisatun, and the list goes on. So one way of identifying a noun being feminine is ta marbuta. This is a general rule. General rule means that there's going to be some exceptions. So there's some exceptions where a noun might have a ta marbuta, but it's still masculine, it's not feminine. Yeah? The first exception is if you see ta marbuta on a masculine name, on a man's name, if you see ta marbuta, is obviously going to be indicating a masculine, because he's a masculine. Like for example, Hamza. This is a masculine's name, Hamza. طيب, okay. So we can also turn nouns which are masculine to feminine, and this is mostly descriptive words like muhandisun, jalisun, waqifun, jadidun, by adding ta marbuta. And ta marbuta, we either have this version or this version added to the end, and that's where ta marbuta appears, only at the end. We use this version if the letter does not join, and the letters which do not join are 6. Anything other than these 6, we use this one. And before attaching the ta marbuta, we need to make sure that the last letter here has a fatha. And we always give it fatha unless it's a alif. Alif will not accept anything. So for example, we have this word that's going to come inshallah in this book. Fatan. Fatan means a young boy, a youth. Fatatun. This is an alif. This type of alif, if it comes in the middle, we're going to add something after it, then it will change and it will become the long alif like this now. It becomes like this. طيب. So I'm adding ta marbuta. Which ta marbuta do I add? This one or this one? This one, right? Because alif does not join, so I leave it like this. So in this case, do I give the alif a fatha? No, I don't. Because this is alif, we said alif is exception. So ta marbuta will always have fatha before it unless an alif comes before it. If there's an alif, then it's sakin. Fatatun, a young girl. Fatan, a young boy. طيب. Okay, so sometimes we can also do it to nouns, like ibnun. Ibnun means a son. We can add ta marbuta to it, and it becomes ibnatun. Ibnatun means daughter. And then there's another general rule, which is every body part that comes in pairs is feminine, is also feminine. This is another rule, a general rule, yeah? Body parts that come in pairs, they are also feminine. So that means body parts that don't come in pairs are masculine. So the hand, do they come in pairs? Yes, we have two hands. So this is why we say هذه يد. This is a hand. Why? Because every body part that comes in pairs is feminine. Same with rijlun, foot. We have two feet. Yeah, they come in pairs. Rijlun. We say هذه rijlun. This is a foot. Why? Because it's feminine. It comes in pairs. And the same for eyes. But body parts which don't come in pairs, like the nose. That's why in the text, when we was reading, we said هذا أنف when we was talking about the nose, because it's masculine. It does not have a pair. هذا أنف وهذا فم. Whereas here we said هذه رجل يد, because all of these come in pairs. So this is another general rule. Body parts that come in pairs, they are feminine. Why are we saying this is a general rule? Because there's going to be exceptions. As you'll find out, most rules, they have exceptions. So here, for example, khaddun, cheeks, a person's cheek is masculine, even though we have two cheeks. Yeah, khaddun is cheek. Khadd is a cheek. Khududun, cheeks. So khadd, even though you have two pairs of cheeks, they are masculine still. So every rule, most rules, you find that there are exceptions. Yeah, some have many exceptions, some have few exceptions. Also, names of countries, places, tribes. Names of countries, tribes, or places, and so on, they are going to be feminine also. Then we have nouns which do not have any signs. There are some nouns which don't have any signs at all, like qidrun. Qidrun means pot. Qidrun does not have any sign. There's no ta marbuta. There's no sign to indicate that this word is feminine or masculine. These kind of words we just have to memorize. That's why in the list of new words we have a section for identifying whether the word is masculine or feminine, and we just have to memorize. طيب. Okay, so if this is understood, inshallah, we are going to explain the next matter. The next matter is the fact that the mubtada and the khabar, they always match in gender and number. This is if the khabar is one-worded. We mentioned that there's going to be different types of khabar, right? So for example, look, هذا is going to be our mubtada. هذا ولد. هذا ولد. مبتدا خبر. مبتدا is مذكر. هذا is for مذكر, right? ولد is مذكر, boy. هذا ولد, this is a boy. The mubtada and the khabar, if the khabar is one-worded, must match in gender always. So if we had هذه, I can't put baladun. I have to put something feminine for it to make sense. هذه بنت. هذه بنت. مؤنث مؤنث. مذكر مذكر. If the khabar is one-worded, it is always going to match with the mubtada in gender. If it's مذكر مذكر. If it's مؤنث مؤنث. This is something that we have to understand from this point onwards. Even though we've mentioned it previously, but from here you have to memorize this rule. Okay, So, for example, if we wanted to say al-baytu, al-baytu, the house. We want to say the house is clean. The house is clean. How do we say clean? نظيف. البيت نظيف. The house is clean. Okay, I want to say the car is clean. How do I say the car is clean? السيارة نظيف. No, I can't say نظيف because نظيف is masculine, describing something masculine to be clean. I have to make it feminine. How do I do that? تا مربوطة. So the fa has to take a fatha, then I add ma ta marbuta. نظيفة. السيارة نظيفة. This makes sense. The mubtada and the khabar match in gender. Feminine, feminine. The mubtada and the khabar match in gender. Masculine, masculine. طيب, the last matter that we have to take out from this lesson is the author, he mentions in this passage that we just read, another way of showing possession. Another way of showing possession. So far we've learnt mudaf mudaf ilayhi. Idafa is a way of showing possession. So we could say this, هذا قلم, this pen, قلم خالد, belongs to Khalid. How did I show possession? By applying the rules of mudaf mudaf ilayh. قلم خالد, Khalid's pen, it belongs to Khalid. هذا قلم خالد. Another way of showing possession is adding this lam. This lam with a kasra, bringing it before the possessor. So in this case, this is the one who owns it. Bringing this lam before it will show that it belongs to him. This lam, li, is a harf jar. This lam is a harf jar. Okay, what does harf jar mean? It makes the noun after it majroor. It makes the noun after end with kasra or kasratain. We've taken this before. So this is another harf jar that came in this lesson. Where did it come in this lesson? We read it here. Liman هذه, who does this belong to? هذه li Khalidin, this belongs to Khalid. Li Khalidin, belongs to Khalid. Okay. هذا قلم. هذا القلم, this pen. هذا القلم لخالد. This pen belongs to Khalid. This pen is Khalid's. This the pen of Khalid, belongs to Khalid. هذا القلم لخالد. This pen belongs to Khalid. Another way of showing possession is using this lam. This lam is a harf jar. When it enters a noun, it makes it majroor. It ends with a kasra or kasratain. This is the final point that we need to take out from this lesson. So if we said li man, liman hadha, what would that mean? Liman, man hadha means who is this? Liman means for who is this? Yani who does it belong to? Liman hadha, and I'm pointing to a pen. I said liman hadha, who does this belong to? For who is this? طيب. So I think we've explained everything in this lesson. To summarize, as we like summarizing inshallah, and this is what everyone should do at the end of the lesson. If you're able to summarize the lesson, then you've understood the lesson. If you're not able to summarize the lesson, then you haven't understood the lesson. Okay, to summarize, in this lesson, we learn هذه. هذه is the feminine version of هذا. The difference between هذه and هذا is that هذه is used for feminine objects. The rest of the conditions are exactly the same as هذا. So it has to be singular, it has to be close. The final condition مؤنث. This is for something which is مؤنث, whereas هذا is for something which is مذكر. That's number one. Secondly, every noun has a gender, either masculine or feminine, مذكر or مؤنث. If it's a living being, yes, it's easy to differentiate between masculine and feminine. We look at the physical organs, and if it gives birth and so on, it's feminine. Otherwise, it's masculine. If it's living beings. Non-living beings in Arabic also have gender. How do you differentiate between mudhakkar and muannath in that case? It's a bit tricky. However, there are some rules. One rule is if it ends with a ta marbuta, then it's feminine. This is a general rule. If a word ends with ta marbuta, it's feminine. Also, body parts that come in pairs, they are also feminine. Body parts that come in pairs are also feminine. Also, names of countries, names of tribes, names of villages and so on, these are also feminine. These are also feminine. And then there are nouns which are feminine, but there's no signs. These have to be memorized. They have to be memorized. Also, what we learned in this lesson is that the mubtada and the khabar, they have to match in gender. If the khabar is one-worded, it has to match with the mubtada in gender. طيب. So here look, for example, Ibn Hamidin Jalisun. Ibn is mudhakkar, that's the mubtada. Mubtada وهو مضاف مضاف إليه. Khabar, mubtada and khabar match. Here bint waqifah, this is the khabar. Mubtada وهو مضاف مضاف إليه. This is mudaf mudaf إليه. The mudaf إليه just an add-on. It doesn't make any difference in the main sentence. So this is what we're talking about. Bint. Bint is mu'annath. So the waqifatun, the khabar, has to be mu'annath. Bintu Yasrin. If we said waqifun, it would not make sense. Same here. Where is it? The jadidatun. When we're talking about the bikes now. هذه دراجة عمار. هذه جديدة. ودراجة أنس قديمة. دراجة, we're talking about a bicycle. So we have to say قديمة, not قديم. You say قديم, that's masculine. You're talking about something which is feminine and describing it with masculine features. That's wrong. So this is also something we have to take away from this lesson. And the final point is lam. This lam, harf jar, we need to add it to our list of huruful jar. Fi, ala, min, ala. We need to add this lam to that collection of words. They are from the huruful jar. What's the meaning of this lam? It comes to show possession. Something belongs to someone. Li Khalidin, for. How do you translate it in English? For. هذا القلم for Khalid. This pen is for Khalid. Belongs to Khalid. And so on. طيب. Finally, homework. First piece of homework. اقرأ واكتب. Read and write. So this is testing your reading and writing ability in this section. What's new in this? الثلاجة. ثلاجة means fridge. ثلاجة means fridge. نافذة means window. نافذة is window. Madrasatun, this could be madrasatun, which means school, or it could be mudarrisatun. Mudarrisatun is a female teacher. But in the context here, I think it's referring to madrasa. هذا مسجد وهذه مدرسة. So this could be madrasatun or mudarrisatun. طيب. So these are the three new words in this section. I'm just mentioning it so it's easy for you to do your homework. طيب. That's the first piece of homework. Second piece of homework is you need to ask questions regarding these objects. Are you going to say ما هذا? Or are you going to say ما هذه? Determine based on the gender. It is either you're asking using ما هذا or ما هذه. What is this? The translation is the same in English. But obviously in English, it doesn't take into consideration the gender. طيب. Okay. So I think all the words here, ثلاجة, we mentioned it in the previous page, means fridge. ثلاجة. نافذة, this is a window, also in the previous page, نافذة. Everything else I think we've taken. So we should be able to do this homework. Then we have homework number 3. اقرأ المثال, read the example. وكون جملا على غراره, and construct sentences similar to it. The example says محمد طالب. مبتدأ خبر. مبتدأ خبر match in gender. مذكر مذكر. Then he's changed the mubtada and made it feminine. Amina now. We're saying Amin is a student. Muhammadun talib, Muhammad is a student. Now Amin is a student. We can't say Amina talibun because it won't match in gender. So we need to say Aminatu talibatun. Talibatun. So we need to apply that rule that we mentioned. Adding ta marbuta to the end of the word. But remember, the letter before it has to take a fatha. Talibatun. And you need to apply the same thing to the rest of this. And I think all of these words are things that we've already taken. Ash-shayu means tea. Shayu is tea. Al-qahwatu is coffee. Al-qahwatu is coffee. Shayu is tea. Muslimun is a Muslim. طيب. Sari'un means fast. Sari'un, very fast. Al-hisanu sari'un, the horse is fast. Otherwise, everything else we've done. So, qahwatu, coffee. Shayu, tea. Sari'un, fast. صحح الجمل الآتية. Answer, correct the following sentences. صحح الجمل الآتية. Correct the following sentences. So some things in this sentence are incorrect. You need to correct them. And that extends to the next page. Then the final piece of homework. اقرأ واكتب مع ضبط أواخر الكلمات. Also a reading and a writing exercise. طيب. Try and read them inshallah. And then next lesson we're going to go over them. الكلمات الجديدة. الكلمات الجديدة, new words. المكواة. المكواة, iron. الدراجة, bicycle. الملعقة, spoon. القدر, pot. البقرة, cow. الفلاح, farmer. الأنف, nose. الفم, فم is mouth. الأذن, ear. اليد, hand. الرجل, the foot. Obviously, I'm not adding the should be the foot, the mouth, and so on, because it has alif lam. الشاي, referring to tea. الأم, the mother. الثلاجة, fridge. القهوة, coffee. سريع, fast, describing something to be fast. النافذة, window. جدا means very, very. And another word which came in this, which is not mentioned here, is أيضا. أيضا means also. أيضا means also. طيب. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.